Welcome to Capitol Report. I'm your host, Matt Swenson. This is State Representative Roger Reinert. Welcome, Roger.
Thanks, Matt.
It's good to have you in the studio, sir. It's good to have you folks tune in Duluth to hear what's happening here at the state capitol and to hear what Representative Reinert is doing on your behalf. And I know that you folks are looking at a $994 million budget deficit this year, but it was important to you folks to get started on the work right away of balancing the budget, and that's what you did here today.
Yep. You know, it's interesting. You hear, some people sort of moaning and complaining that the $1 billion problem isn't solved already. And, frankly, $1 billion takes a little bit of time to figure out. And so I'm really happy. We passed a bill this morning that took care of about 40% of the $1 billion issue. It's all done through reductions in state spending. And that's not something that anybody relishes because all of those programs are important to someone. But the reality is that we have to make some reductions. I mean, I've argued for a balanced solution, which means reductions as well as revenue. But, when we look at, so we have a $1 billion problem this year, but when we look at the next 2 years, the next biennium, it's a $7 billion problem. So if we don't make reductions this year that we can carry forward, we're going to have just a hole that may be too big to climb out of in the next 2 years. So we took an important first step today by passing this bill. Like I said, cuts just under $400 million in state spending from a variety of areas. Health and Human Services and education, the two areas Minnesotans consistently say are the most important to them, were not a part of this bill, but every other area of the state budget was.
And it's important to mention that veterans have been protected in this bill. And you've also set some priorities with aids to local governments.
Right.
I know that the governor has proposed very deep cuts, $250 million to local government aid, county program aid, and market value homestead credit, and this bill cuts far less.
Right. I mean, right away, like you said, Matt, the governor proposed to reduce local government aid and county aid, which goes to counties, by $250 million. Now, anyone who has followed this issue at home knows that local government has been paying for the state's budget woes for a number of years. Right before I left the city council in 2007, right at the end of the year, our budget's already set, the governor handed us almost a $2 million unallotment. Budget's set. There's not much you can do about it at that point. We had a local government aid reduction in 2009. We had an unallotment in the summer of 2009. And so here we're back at that trough again. And, it's easy, I think, to demonize programs like local government aid and county aid. But, folks at home know this is money that goes to police, it goes to firefighters, it goes to streets, it goes to public works, and it goes to things that people really like libraries and park systems. So, it's not, some down here like to call it welfare for local government. Folks that like to have a police respond or a fire person respond, I don't think that they view it that way. So we told the governor that's unacceptable. We prioritized other things in terms of cuts, and we tried to reduce the harm here as much as we could. Took that $250 million figure down to 105. And what does that mean? Well, for the city of Duluth, that took what would have been a $3.9 million cut and reduced it to 1.7. But on an even bigger scale, when we look at the next year of the biennium, it took what would have been a $10 million cut, $10 million in 1 year to the city's budget, and reduced it to a 2.3. So, I'm not happy that we're making any cuts at all, but I think they have to be done. Sometimes you get the tough job that you don't necessarily enjoy doing. But I am very happy that we were able to drastically reduce those cuts. There is one other part, though, of the budget that of this budget balancing bill that I want to point out, and that's the state grant program. Mm-hmm. I sit on the higher ed committee, and the state grant program currently has a $45 million hole. And that's a product of the bad economy. People have lost their jobs, they're going back to school, they don't have a job, so they qualify for financial aid. We on the House side came up with a really good solution for that. We took a lot of one-time programs, smaller programs. What I like to say is we took the decorations off in order to save the tree. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, the Senate didn't cooperate with us on that, and the governor didn't cooperate with us on it either. So for the first time in the state's history, and I just want to repeat that, for the first time in the state's history, Minnesota will be cutting financial aid to lower and middle income students going to college. And that is a really disappointing part of this bill to me.
And again, this is the first of 3 budget bills to come before the House this session. And it's important that you folks have all the information that you need to make the right choices for Minnesota, and that depends on getting information from the federal government on potential millions of dollars coming from Congress that could assuage some of the cuts that need to be made here.
Absolutely. I mean, the passage of the health care reform bill in Washington, D.C. will have a huge impact on Minnesota's budget deficit. You know, like I said, health and human services is something that's important to people. It's also the single largest part of our state budget. So, you know, we're waiting to see how all of those numbers are going to shake out before we take the next steps. But, you know, that will be coming very soon as well.
It's important to mention that piece that you talked about, the state grant program. We do know that there will be new federal dollars coming from Congress in the form of Pell Grants and better school loans for our students as well.
Right. So that is good news, but I take the position that it doesn't let Minnesota off. If we consider ourselves an education state and we protect K-12 funding, we ought to be thinking about higher education, because more and more this economy is one that doesn't support people who don't have some form of higher education, whether it be technical, community college, or a four-year degree.
Well, difficult decisions being made here at the state capitol this session. I know you encourage folks to call you and let them know what you think. So,
call or email, that would be great.
Great. Thanks so much, Representative Reinert. We'll see you next time on Capitol Report.